Have you ever heard stories passed down through generations, the kind that send chills down your spine and make you question reality? But what if I told you these stories are more than just legends? What if I told you they came from someone who actually lived through them? Today, we're going to explore one of those chilling tales, straight from my grandmother's memories. But remember, some things are better left forgotten. The house was located at the edge of a small town, a relic from past times. With its creaky wooden floors, dark hallways, and a roof falling apart, it was a place many avoided. The locals spoke of it in whispers, each word carrying the weight of fear. It wasn't just the house's age that made it terrifying. There was something invisible about it, something that lingered in the air. My grandmother lived in that house for many years. She moved there when she was young, but even then, she would talk about the strange feelings she had living there. The shadows that moved when no one was around, the cold drafts that appeared out of nowhere, and most importantly, the figure that sometimes appeared in the trees behind the house. It all started slowly. My grandmother told me about the man she would see standing at the edge of the woods, watching her through the window. He never spoke, never approached, but he would always be there, standing motionless. His face was always hidden in shadow, and his presence made the air feel colder. She said she felt like he knew exactly where she was at all times, and the worst part was that he never left. At first, she tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just an illusion, she thought. But as time went on, she became more and more convinced that he was real. She would see him every night, always in the same spot, always in the same posture. And no matter how many times she looked away, when she looked back out the window, there he was. The years passed, and my grandmother grew more and more uneasy. She would lock the doors and close the windows before nightfall, but the figure never stopped watching. In the silence of the night, when the house was cloaked in darkness, she began to hear knocks on the door. 3 distinct knocks, followed by a deep silence. But when she opened the door, there was no one there, only the wind and the sound of leaves rustling in the trees. It wasn't just the knocks that frightened her. It was the feeling of being watched, as if the man wasn't just outside the house, but inside it too. She would hear footsteps in the hallway, doors creaking, but when she went to check, there was nothing, no one. Then came the night that everything changed. My grandmother was sitting in her rocking chair near the fireplace, lost in her thoughts, when she heard the knock. 3 quick knocks, followed by the same deep silence. This time, when she opened the door, there was no one there, but something was different. A small piece of crumpled paper was nailed to the door with a rusty nail. Written hastily by hand was a simple message: "I will return." She didn't understand. Who would leave such an ominous note, and why? The hairs on the back of her neck stood up, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it was a warning, a threat. Something was about to happen. The strange happenings didn't stop, and my grandmother became more isolated. She spent her days locked in the house, always checking the locks and retreating to the rooms she felt were safest. But over time, her behavior grew more frantic. She would always say, "He's out there. I can feel him watching, waiting." Then, one day, she simply disappeared. Without warning, without a trace, she was gone. The house, which had always been filled with her presence, was now silent. The door was locked from the inside, the windows closed, but there were no signs of a struggle. It was as if she had just vanished into thin air. The police had no answers. They searched the house, the surrounding area, but found no sign of her. It was like she evaporated. And yet no one could explain what had happened. They only knew that my grandmother was gone, and the eerie presence in the house remained. Before she disappeared, my grandmother had one last conversation with me. She pulled me close, her eyes wide with fear, and said, "The man from the woods, he's not just a man. He's something older, something that has been watching this house for much longer than I have. And now, it's your turn. I didn't understand at the time. I thought it was just her getting old, maybe imagining things. But as the years went by, I began to notice the same things. First, the whispers at night, soft, indistinct, as if coming from nowhere. Then I saw him, the figure at the edge of the trees, just as my grandmother had described. I could feel his eyes on me, and every time I turned to look, he would vanish. But I knew deep down he was still there. One night after a long day, I heard the knock on the door. 3 knocks. I opened the door, half expecting to find nothing, but this time there was something new. A small piece of paper nailed to the door, just like before. This time the message was clearer. I never left. That's when I realized. The man from the woods, the knocks, the whispers. It was all real. My grandmother had warned me, but I hadn't listened, and now I'm trapped in the same nightmare she lived. Some stories are better left in the past, buried where they can't hurt us. But some, like the one my grandmother told me, linger far longer after they're spoken. The shadows of that old house never truly left. And now, as she warned me, I find myself caught in the same fate. So next time you think about bringing something back from your past, whether it's an old house, a memory, or something even darker, remember, some things are better left untouched. If you enjoyed this chilling tale and want to hear more sinister legends like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And right now, there's another dark story waiting for you on the screen. Watch it if you dare. But beware, some things are not meant to be ours.